Save equipment, supplies that used to be thrown away in the landfill, that were sometimes used for teaching purposes, but this is a massive amount of stuff I have, and send it with people, to people, so that it may save lives, transform lives, and it's so wonderful, you know.
She's been at it for 10 years by herself, shipping these supplies with friendly airlines or with passengers heading for a particular overseas destination. Petrie came from Edinburgh, Scotland, where she trained before coming to the U.S. 20 years ago. She's been in Alaska 11 years and spent the last 10 on her ongoing relief effort. For her part, Petrie says she's partially motivated because she just can't stand to waste anything.
I don't know if it's my Scottishness, and I hate throwing things away, but I throw them at somebody that can need it. It's, you know, I don't know. I really, you know, it's taken over my life in a way.
It all started when Petrie was part of the first group of Alaskans to visit Russia 10 years ago. She was part of the first biomedical expedition under the auspices of the University of Alaska. While on a tour of some of the far eastern Russian clinics, the Americans encountered some primitive conditions.
It was very similar to what probably maybe in America was in the 50s.
She makes it happen without benefit of an umbrella organization or tax exemption by recruiting business and vacation travelers to carry her boxes along with their own gear. Petrie doesn't mind spending a bit of her own cash, but doesn't want to spend the time and energy required to build some sort of agency. She feels that time is better used in collecting, boxing, and shipping the precious cargo than in getting dressed to head into some office.
Because I'm a night shift person, so I'm not out during the day, and I sleep during the day, and I'll help an agency, but it just evolved that I started it on my own. And I got to a stage where I decided, well, because somebody said, well, Esther, you should get a tax ID number and do this and this and this. And I said, well, I'll have to have a board of directors, and I'll have to, you know, I come home from work, I unload the car, I'll go to bed. When I wake up, I'll pack boxes. I don't have to get my clothes on, I can just do something.
Petrie's one-woman effort has had some impact if one can measure by the amount of material she's been able to get to various points around the globe. This year, she's already put nearly 3,000 pounds of supplies on various aircraft headed for destinations overseas. In past years, she shipped 3 times that amount. Her crusade has become familiar to many customs agents, both in this country and in several others, and she's become used to their suspicions.
I think they look every time. I think customs men come out of one gene pool, no matter what language they speak. I'm in trouble with them now. No, I think they're doing their job.
Only one of her shipments has actually been rejected. Russian customs agents returned boxes of disposable surgical drapes, saying they weren't humanitarian aid. She has been able to ship enough supplies to actually clear some space in her living room, shipping out 20 boxes the day before we visited her. The one-woman relief agency gets a lot of fulfillment out of her personal mission. When she gets some feedback from recipients of her generosity, she says it meets most of her needs.
I mean, I just get these reports and these thank you letters, so that makes it all worthwhile. I don't need anything else. Strapping tape.
In Anchorage, I'm Gary Fife for Inside Alaska.
Turn left and you've got Russia, you know.
Good evening and welcome to Inside Alaska. I'm Robert Klink. Inside Alaska tonight, you've seen eagles before, but never like this. We'll travel to Homer and introduce you to the Eagle Lady. Jean Keane makes it her business to keep these eagles flying. And also tonight, Parenting a teen can be stressful, like knowing what to do if your son forgets his fiddle on the way to an important gig. We'll give teen band Evergreen a listen. Those stories, plus our Remember When segment and more. Stay with us. One of the most enduring images of Alaska is the bald eagle. Every winter for the last couple of decades, the Eagle Lady of Homer has been providing hundreds of these magnificent creatures with a little extra nourishment to get them through the long Alaskan winter. Inside Alaska reporter Gary Fife and photographer Mike McCormick journey to the end of the road in Homer to visit the Eagle Lady.
She has long been a fixture of the Homer Spit, occupying her small RV and yard near a nearly empty RV park. The park is nearly empty, that is, save for the more than 200 eagles gathered there for a midday meal, courtesy of Gene Keene.
I've always fed birds. Never, it's the first time I've fed eagles, but we've had some tough winters here where a lot of them would not have survived, especially the weaker ones and ones with bad feet and bad beaks. And especially this winter, when we had so much snow and very cold weather, this year they're very aggressive to get the food. And so that this way by spring they're nice and fat and sassy. And but there's a lot of satisfaction in knowing that they're fed, not laying out there starving.
Her love of Alaska's abundant eagle population began as a unique way to dispose of some fish scraps. But over the years, it's developed into a personal relationship with the nation's symbol.
One thing led to another for a long time, and of course I had access and to leftover fish and stuff. I'd start bringing home a bucket or two, and then of course it led to a lot more than that.
The eagles get fish scraps donated by local processing plants and local citizens, recycling what have been thrown out to rot. Some years, she's laid out 60,000 pounds of fish heads and scraps to the hundreds of young and mature eagles patiently perched on every conceivable spot surrounding her home or soaring overhead. Her efforts have drawn attention of national and international media organizations. TV crews from foreign nations have made the trip to the end of the Spit to document a day in the life of the Eagle Lady. Likewise, photographers from around the globe and nation have been privileged to enter Keene's yard to get some of the most amazing shots of this rare gathering.
They can get closer to the birds here without bothering them than they can anywhere else. And so that I don't allow any tripods set up outside the fence, but in here you can go ahead and set your tripod up, and as long as they're not hanging over the fence and making quick, fast moves, and stuff, the birds have accepted them.
Oh, God, look at that.
But there's an added benefit in providing visiting families and children with the chance for a shot that's usually been reserved for professionals with the biggest lenses.
I get more of a kick out of throwing a piece of food by a car that's got a bunch of kids in it, then they have an eagle go up there and they just squeal with delight. You know, I get a bigger kick out of that than anything. And and 99% of the kids are great.
To keep from disturbing the feeding, Keene keeps some strict rules for those who choose to come out to the Homer Spit to watch and photograph.
I lay down some solid rules and regulations for everybody, even the photographers, and so that, and I hope they appreciate the fact, and I think 99% of them do, and the fact that they can get so close to birds. To some of them it means a great deal, to others it doesn't mean a tinker's damn.
But Keene's feathered feeding program has not been without its critics. In the early days, some of her Homer neighbors and the Department of Fish and Wildlife had expressed concerns for possible impacts on eagle feeding habits, the birds' health, or they're getting used to being around humans. Those charges, Keene said, have been disproven over the years.
There's always going to be people opposed to it. But you know, when I started doing it, years ago, they said, well, she's going to have 1,000 birds here. They're going to all die of a disease, and they're all going to starve the minute she quits feeding them in the spring. Well, none of this has happened.
Jean Keene's future on the Homer Spit and her voluntary eagle feeding program is uncertain, she says. Developers are interested in adding condominiums to the Land's End Resort, and there's talk of building a new marine repair terminal out here. Either one will bring increased activity to the Spit, and Keene fears that may forever change the environment and comfort level of the hundreds of eagles who annually converge here. For now, that's little concern for the eagles, who will soon be off to continue their own life cycles, just a little stronger for the care provided by the Eagle Lady of Homer, Jean Keene. In Homer, I'm Gary Fife, Inside Alaska.
Jean Keene stays in touch with appropriate wildlife officials, reporting sick and injured birds in need of medical care and rehabilitation. Celtic music is...
The family of a Palmer police officer killed early this morning speaks out. We'll bring you their story coming up in the live report.
Plus, Copper River Reds make their way from the waters of Alaska onto the plates of Washington State residents.
And they're not even on the shelves yet, but they promise to be the hottest new computer games around. We'll give you a sneak preview.
You're watching KTVA. And now, with coverage you can count on, this is Alaska's 11 News at 6.
A family is mourning.
All right! Yay!
This 30-foot, 1-inch bowhead whale is the result of a successful hunt by Captain Harry Bauer and his crew. The barrow whalers have taken 13 whales since the season began in April. The annual whale hunt is a central part of filling the subsistence needs for the Inupiaq and other important cultural events. And if you'd like to hear more about the hunt, be sure and tune in to Inside Alaska this week.
Quite a whale. Incredibly big. Well, Anchorage teens are celebrating.
I'm Robert Klink. Tonight on Inside Alaska, if you're looking for something different on an Alaskan radio station, we'll take you to KNBA, the only urban Native-owned radio station in the state. It's a goal to provide a voice for Native Alaskans and a unique experience for listeners. And we'll take you to a dig on the island of Afognak, where there's a continuing search for Alaska's heritage. Those stories plus a commentary from Anchorage Police Chief Dwayne Udland when Inside Alaska returns. Anchorage is a hotbed of Native American broadcasting. It's seen the beginnings of nationally syndicated Native radio news programs, local Native TV news, and other first-of-a-kind Native offerings on the airwaves. Well, now Anchorage can be proud of another first. Reporter Gary Fife teamed up with photographer Mike McCormick for a look at a very special offering on the Anchorage FM dial.
You're listening to member-supported 90.3 KNBA.
If you've tuned into the 90.3 spot on the FM dial, that might be what you've heard. A unique voice in the Anchorage radio market and the entire nation's radio market for that matter. Native Americans have always communicated their life, their culture, and history through an oral tradition, so actually radio broadcasting is unnatural. KNBA has taken that to the next logical step, putting together the first urban native radio station in the United States. Its unique blend of music and information is designed to fill the void for audiences both native and non-native.
We intersperse our program schedule with music that is very popular to all segments of the population.
Jacqueline Salee, an Inupiat Eskimo, heads up Kawanik Broadcasting Incorporated, the parent organization for the radio station. Salee says this station tries to please their audiences, but she adds that can be sometimes a fine line to walk.
KNBA is the nation's first urban native-controlled radio station. So there isn't any model or any book that you can open that says, okay, this is how you market and program a native station in an urban market where you need to be competitive, you need to be attractive to both your native listeners and to the general public.
Keeping KNBA's niche in the state's largest broadcast market is the new job of longtime public broadcasting veteran Dave Hammock. Anchorage, he says, is similar to other major markets, and there's room for 2 public stations.
In most large markets around the country, there are more than one public broadcasting outlet, just as there are a variety of program formats and differing streams of content on the commercial side of the broadcast spectrum. There are multiple program formats available on the public radio side.
Like other public radio stations, KNBA devotes a lot of its resources to the production of news programs, but it goes further. It's the producer of nationally syndicated programs serving the needs of listeners for news about Native American communities nationally and the general public for education on Native issues.
National Native News.
That's the job of National Programming Director Nellie Moore, another Inupiat who's usually heard as the voice of National Native News.
To bring Native languages, Native issues, Native skills, Native music into some familiarity. You know, kids will hear it, they'll feel good about it, they'll become familiar with the strange sounds of different languages.
Coming up next is the Native artist Robbie Robertson.
The on-air sound is the responsibility of some paid staff members and volunteers who fill in the air shifts. Charlene Kauchik is community affairs producer for the station and a familiar voice on the local air.
People can tell we have intelligent listeners, and we play music. Even though it's native, it's good native music, and I think that people can hear that.
That blend of old and new native music combined with an adult alternative format has garnered enough public attention and support to keep KNBA on the air and competitive. Salee says they've chosen the right combination that fills a need yet appeals to a broad range of listeners. It's apparently been a winning formula. KNBA's unique offering of native news and music, adult alternative music, and its mission as a native voice leaves Salee and their staff confident about their place among the FM frequencies.
We're the second non-commercial station here in the market, and we believe that we provide a very special programming offered that isn't available anywhere else.
In the studios of KNBA, for Inside Alaska, I'm Gary Fife.
The Kawanik in Kawanik Broadcasting Corporation is an Athabascan word meaning live air. Its studios are located at 9th and Gamble. Good evening and welcome to Inside Alaska. I'm Robert Klink. Inside Alaska tonight, the recent debates over budget cuts have everyone concerned, but some places may lose more than funding. And we'll go to Kenai to find out what has residents there so concerned. Later, we'll go for a ride with a man who keeps the romance of the horse-drawn carriage alive and well. Those stories and more coming up on Inside Alaska. Who keeps the horse-drawn carriage alive and well in Anchorage. In this day and age when people and things move at a faster and faster pace, visitors to downtown can still find transportation that harkens back to a time when Anchorage moved at a slower pace. Inside Alaska reporter Gary Fife and photographer Mike McCormick met the man who keeps horse-drawn carriages a part of the Anchorage street scene.
John Nauman says you don't have to be a horse lover to operate his business, but it sure helps. He's one of the owners, operators, and drivers of the Horse-Drawn Carriage Company Incorporated of Chugiak. They've been a part of the Anchorage street scene since 1983, adding their own bit of elegance and romance. This particular 2-horse-powered time machine is called a vis-a-vis limousine, the pride and joy of John Nauman of the Horse-Drawn Carriage Company of Chugiak. A retired oceanographer from the Federal Minerals Management Service, he now spends his time with his beloved horses driving down Anchorage streets. He's the kind of businessman who loves to talk about his unique cabs and their equine power plants.
You don't do it because you won't need money. You do it because you like to work with horses, be out of doors, work with people, and being crazy helps.
For 20 years, it's been his carriages that carry passengers on romantic journeys backwards in time to the years when a well-kept carriage and team were considered the limousines of their time. Carriages like this were in their heyday back more than a century ago, and they were the height of elegance during their era. But on this custom-built unit, they use rubber tires plus some other concessions to modern roads and laws, like battery-powered safety lighting and brakes. However, it's the horses that supply the power when it comes to getting on down the road. In this case, it's a beautiful pair of matched Percherons named Barney and Mac. For Nauman, they're not exactly household pets, but he still loves them with some healthy respect.
They are big puppies. You have to always, we call them the gentle giants. And you have to remember that they are gentle some of the times and giants all the time.
This team is hitched side by side in elaborate modern-day bioplastic harness, which has replaced leather for most components except the bells. When assembled, the harness makes a loop around the animal and carriage poles, so the horse is really pushing the carriage at these collars instead of pulling it. If one piece breaks, Nauman describes the result as a real experience when a horse gets goosed by anything he's pulling. The Chugiak man takes the trouble to come out because he loves what he's doing, giving modern-day Alaskans the chance to experience a mode of transportation from a bygone age, or he says at least what they imagine it was.
I think people are attracted to that so-called simple life, which in actuality I don't think ever was, but you know, everybody has that conception. The quietness, being able to have some association with an animal.
It's a good thing he enjoys it because he's got about $300,000 invested and he's never made money at the business. In fact, last year was the first year that he ever broke even, making enough to pay the feed bills of horses like Barney and Mac here and about 4 others on the farm. But man's love of the horse and the lure of a ride in this carriage does attract its customers. In this case, a bridal party.
Over here, please, one over.
Then it's off to the streets for the bridal party, who will forever remember the experience as a unique part of the wedding day. The phrase, once around the park, at least in Anchorage, means a trip around the Delaney Park Strip for the delighted party and John Nauman of the Horse-Drawn Carriage Company. In Anchorage, for Inside Alaska, I'm Gary Fife.
John Nauman and his horse-drawn carriages are usually found during the evenings, looking for passengers near the Captain Cook Hotel. Well, there's more to come on Inside Alaska. Please stay with us.
No matter if you're riding a horse.
Good evening and welcome to Inside Alaska. I'm Robert Klink. Tonight, it's been almost a year since a Kodiak teen, Johnny White, was reported missing. We'll join in the search. Plus, if you're heading to Kenai this summer, you might notice some new artwork. Correspondent Kirk Chason traveled to Kenai to get the scoop on how public art became a public project. This plus Remember When and much more Inside Alaska. 16-year-old Johnny Renee White was last seen over 10 months ago attending a local music festival. Now in Kodiak, the nearly year-old search has been renewed. But why? And what do searchers hope to find? Reporter Gary Fife and photographer Mike McCormick joined with the search teams combing Kodiak's hills and marshes, trying to end the mystery.
During the early morning hours of July 18, 1998, 16-year-old Johnny Renee White disappeared under what Alaska State Troopers are now calling suspicious circumstances. The resulting two-week search was what troopers called one of the largest searches they had ever attempted in an effort to find a missing teen. White was babysitting for a local couple, Ronald Scott Tennyson and Sharon Dawson. This is the popular informal little campground where Johnny Renee White was last seen. It's only a few feet off the road and just a couple of miles from the community of Pasagshak. It's from here she and the young Mr. Tennyson left on the night of July 18th, 1998 to go down the road and find some firewood. According to the story Tennyson later told local investigators, his truck became stuck in the sand on this beach. It's after that trip that Tennyson reported White missing and stated to authorities that he woke up the next morning at 10 a.m. with White nowhere to be found. That's the part that Bond finds hard to believe, and it's her feeling that the facts, as Tennyson stated them, don't add up.
I was out here with search and rescue dogs, and their animals never even picked up her smell except for the spot where the truck was, because her smell was in the truck and the campsite, nowhere else.
Now with late May's warmer weather and current lack of ground cover, White's mother, Jane Bond, says she and supporters will be scouring acres of Kodiak coastline, hoping to find some clues or her daughter's remains.
I guess what we're going to do is just keep on searching all summer. And, you know, what I can't get out here and volunteer, I'm sure I'll be out here anyway.
Bond says her daughter was not the type to run away. Johnny Renee White had been developing a stronger relationship with her mother, something Bond says her daughter had expressed through her letters and poetry.
We're all going to die someday. But when there's someone in life, someone special to you, it seems they never die or fade away. All those memories of joy and sorrow, good and bad, are always there. You always remember the way they did things, their smile, their laugh, but mostly their friendship of heart. In my life, there are very few special people, But those few people mean a lot to me, and you're one of those special people. Johnny Renee, summer of '96.
Alaska State Troopers report they're continuing to investigate and are still seeking more tips from the public in order to solve the case. Trooper Steve Hall reports it's now considered a suspicious missing person, but would not elaborate. But the initial response by the state troopers has been under criticism from white